Right, this is going to be whatever episode of the Flashpoint Q&A. My guest, I'm obviously Thorin. Normally Monty does it, but he's away on holiday for some reason. I notice he's still doing a show for Cloud9, so obviously we see where his priorities lie, don't we? Traitor. Right. So our guests for this episode are going to be Snappi in the middle there, who is now part of our Flashpoint team. Listen, we all felt so bad about the way it went last time. We wanted to get him in for real this time. You know, it was just cruel to tease him like that, give him one day's play, and then send him on his way. So obviously you've joined Contact now, this new in-game leader, and then we've got Elmapuddy here, who is coach of Gen.G, right?
That's the one.
Yes, and formerly, do you actually still do videos on your YouTube channel nowadays, mate?
I haven't done one since about January, but I might try and do a couple over the player break.
Okay, fair enough. So anyway, people know the way this works. It's basically like a Twitch AMA. I mean, obviously, if people ask stupid or boring questions, I won't ask them. But if the questions are interesting, we'll use them as conversation starters and see what these guys think. So let's see. Does anyone have a question? Chuck something in the Twitch chat. If not, I think I'll ask one in the meantime while I wait for the first questions to come in. So my question will be this, Snappi, is... we don't have to delve into any drama or anything, but can you give us, like, from the player perspective, what happened in Flashpoint 1 for you guys at FPX, where you were originally going to be there representing FPX? We thought they'd bought the whole heroic lineup. At the time, you guys were ranked number 14 in the world. Obviously, you played the first part, like you played that first match. Then after that, we just never saw you again. Obviously, you got replaced eventually by the Bad News Bears lineup, which, as I stated on the show, was never like the real lineup. They were just using the slot. So what went on from you guys' side? What can you say?
Like, the problem is right now I'm still kind of caught in the middle of it in a way. And there's a lot of drama going on. So I wish I could actually get into...
Oh, it's not resolved? Okay.
No, but like, I mean, it is, but I still have some, like, loose ends, and I'm like, so I really, it's hard for me to actually go into detail about it publicly. So I kind of have to dodge the question.
All right, fair enough. At least I asked you. I have to ask the question, even if you can't answer them, Snappy. That's just the way it works sometimes in the interview and game, mate. So, right, we've got some questions here. Let me have a look here. Unfortunately, the person asking about FPX, I don't know if they know it's like a different team. I've got a question for you. This is just a general one, because it has nothing to do with Flashpoint. What do you guys think of the Na'Vi team at the moment? Do you have any thoughts about them, Elmapuddy, Na'Vi?
I mean, they should be pretty good, right? I mean, they won that Kato event and looked amazing back when LANs were happening. I think they won the second RMR event in the CIS region, so I mean, that's all they really have to do right now. I mean, they're playing Blast and stuff. I actually haven't kept up to date with exactly what they're doing. I'm kind of stuck in my NA bubble right now, so I don't have a heap of thoughts on them, to be honest.
What do you think, Snappy?
I think it's hard to actually judge them now that everything is online, and then as Elmapuddy, I haven't actually paid that much attention, mainly because they've been playing the CIS qualifier, and I've only been watching the European one, to be honest. I haven't really followed the American or the CIS. I know that Spirit and I think Na'Vi won the last one, and then Furia has done pretty good in America from what I've seen.
Sure.
But I haven't paid that much attention to NA and CIS, to be honest.
I'm going to reframe some of the questions if they're just put in a way that we can't ask them. But here's a question I think both people can answer or give a thought, and I'll give my own thoughts as well. Right? As opposed to how this guy phrases it, I'm just going to ask, what do you think the impact as a pro player is if you have a girlfriend?
I'll let you go ahead, Snappy. As a player.
I've tried, like, I had a girlfriend for 3-4 years now. So I've tried not having a girlfriend, and obviously you have a lot more time, but you also have a lot more time to go out and drink and do other stuff, I guess. Like,
sure.
People go out a lot when they're young people, and they get a lot more money in their hands than what their friends probably have. So I think it can be kind of good and bad. I think you get much more stability, but obviously you also have to balance it out. I don't think necessarily playing 120 hours is going to benefit all players. So I think there probably is more benefits to having a girlfriend, but if you are a blame F or a simple kind of guy that just he spends 14 hours a day, I guess, playing CS, then a girlfriend, I guess, could get into it. I actually think Simple has a girlfriend, so I guess it doesn't get in the way. But I think it depends and varies very much from person to person.
What do you think, Elmapuddy?
Yeah,
I mean, in your case, maybe from the coaching side of things, like, what do you think if your players have them? Like, what are the challenges, or how do you deal with it?
I think I agree with Snappi. It does depend on the individual, how much time they're putting in, and how good are they at balancing, I guess, obviously having a girlfriend, being a supportive partner, and then moving across and also putting enough time to CS. I think it really depends how the player balances it. As far as bringing girlfriends to LANs or anything like that, I mean, I've only been to a couple of big LANs. I think Automatic brought his girlfriend to the DreamHack Opener. That didn't seem to be a problem at all. He was still putting in a lot of effort and really turning up to the games ready to play. So from what I've seen, I think it really depends on the individual and how they're going to manage it themselves. Yeah, I think it really just comes down to the individual overall.
Yeah, then again, I also think it's about educating in a way your girlfriend.
Sure.
Like my girlfriend doesn't come from CS at all. She doesn't even watch games or anything. But I think, like, I think I brought her to one LAN event, but she kind of understood that I was there to work. I was not there to be with her, if it makes sense. But it was just a good destination, and another player brought his girlfriend, so they could kind of hang out. But she was like, she knew how it was gonna go. Like, she knew that I was not gonna spend time with her. Almost, I was there to work, basically.
Yes, I think that's a great way to say it as well, because that's not even like an unfair thing to say. Like, you're in your office, basically. It's a similar problem that people have, I think, as a topic when people work from home, which is famously everyone says, "Oh, don't work from home because people will be interrupting you all the time." It's like, no, you have to educate people that, like, this isn't my bedroom now; it's my workspace. And I'm actually at the office now. It's the equivalent of like 11 in the morning, and you're coming in while we're having a meeting. Like, in that scenario, you're not even dissing the person; they just have to understand and reframe where they are. Because I've always thought that topic, it's kind of rubbish that people on either side have a strong opinion. Like, you can't just be like, oh, having girlfriends is universally good for every player all the time. Of course not. We know people who've ruined their whole career doing that. At the same time, though, it's not universally only a positive thing when it works. I'm sure there's people where if they don't have that support network, they might be worse, or they'll feel more isolated. Like, I could imagine someone in a foreign team, for example, might even be way better for them if their girlfriend moved with them to another country and they had someone to connect with, where they're not just an outsider. So, yeah, I would say it's based on the people. I even think, just since it's probably mainly young men watching this show, that whole thing of like girlfriends ruin pro players is overrated in this sense. It's an incomplete statement. Like, I would say women that don't understand what a pro gamer's job and are overly demanding or maybe need a very high maintenance will ruin a player who otherwise in his relationship is weak around women who are high maintenance in that regard. Like, that's such a specific set of circumstances. It doesn't apply to men or women. It's actually people in that type of a relationship. So there definitely have been a lot of pros that have ruined their careers, but I would put a lot of that, in my opinion, more down to they were just young guys who didn't understand how to balance working and having this lifestyle on the side. So there's a lot you could say on that, but probably better that we don't. Right, what about this then? What do you think about the current map pool? And is there any map you would like back in the pool?
Yeah. Do you want to start?
I mean, I'm just thinking. I mean, I quite like the map pool right now. I've never been a big fan of Cash. I don't really like how it's played with. You just get a lot of control towards A main and B, and you kind of just like, it seems very like a poppy, like you just pop a lot on that map, and then mid control is always a bit weird. I don't know how it's going to play out with the new little nooks and crannies they have on middle. As far as that's the obvious one they might bring in, and then, I mean, for me, I quite like Mirage, so I don't really want that one out at all. It's obviously one of our better maps on Gen.G as well, so I definitely want that one to stay, which is again that obvious one that would leave. So for me, I'm quite happy with it. I also like Vertigo. I think it's quite a fun map. I think there's a few things maybe towards the B side again that could change. It's very hard for the CTs to defend that. But no, I mean, I'm quite happy with the map pool, to be honest.
Yeah, like, I think, in my opinion, I actually said this 3 years ago when Nuke was a very unpopular map, that I thought it was the best map in the pool, and I still think it's the case. And I think that more and more people have started to kind of open their eyes to how much opportunities the map actually delivers in terms of tactical play and how you can play the map. So I think that is by far the best map in the pool. Still, I don't like Dust 2 at all. I think it's very based on luck to a certain extent. I don't like the fact that spawns is random. One game you can have 0 long spawns, another game you can have like 5 or 6. I think, in my opinion, like they could possibly fix those 2 by doing set spawns, so that you can actually
Explain what the impact is, because people are going to miss the point there, Snappi, right? Basically, how you as the CT play along is completely defined by whether they can just be there like 3 seconds earlier, right?
Yeah, the problem is that like every time a team has a long spawn, they're gonna send someone out long. For every time. Like they're either gonna send one out behind blue, or they're gonna rush long, or they're gonna drop the orb to the guy. And I just think it's a bad look for the map. I don't think it's a good map anyway. I think it's a bad map. I think it's by far the worst in the pool. I think Cobblestone was a very good map, and I think it was underrated for a very long time, because the map was absolute garbage until they made the stairs over on B side. But after they like that fix, like by adding the stairs, I think the map became great after that. And I always never bought into the like people said that you didn't have to take map control on Cobble, and that's complete bullshit, because there's so much map control to take towards A, and you could even argue that like B long that there is some map control to be taken there, because
Sure.
you could actually fight it. So I never bought into that idea. I think it was just, I don't know who stated these things, but in my opinion, it was just straight up wrong. So I would like Cobble back, and I agree that Cash, it was not a map that I liked, but we never played it, so I'm kind of biased there.
That's actually what's so bizarre if you think about it, that people hated Cobblestone because they always used to say it was too T-sided. Everyone loves Dust 2. Like, has no one seen Dust 2 recently? Like, that map will probably always be T-sided with the way it's made. So, like, it just shows how people just have, like, it's almost like they just think up their opinion and then look for the fact that just confirms their opinion afterwards, basically.
Yeah, and I also think that people, like, I like, statistics even showed that Cobblestone was a CT-sided map for, like, more than a year straight before it got removed. I just think people didn't know that they shouldn't play inside drop, the drop zone. I think people just made the mistake back then. So I never thought Cobble was a bad map. I think it was one of the better maps in the pool.
One thing I'll say is this. One area I can agree with both of you and disagree with one of you in a way is, like, it's going to sound like, in theory, like, put it this way, Cobble and Cash have the same issue, which is that you're both saying they had like a fairly defined playing style and you sort of like play within that meta over and over again, right? The problem with that is, in my opinion, that just depends if you then like the map or not. Like, I'll get the obvious examples of a map like Mirage. If I love Mirage, I love the fact that it's the same game every time. I just want to play that game. It's like if you play chess, you don't think about changing the board. You like chess. I'm here for chess. So if I like Mirage or I like Cash, I want it to be like Elmapuddy's saying here. He might not like that because maybe he doesn't like that style of game. So in the same sense, I can totally get why the people who are the masters of Cobblestone love that map. They don't care that it's got these certain limitations to it that the map itself has. That's what they want to play. So I agree. I think all these maps had their own charm in their own way. It just depends whether your team's good on it and whether you enjoy watching that style of Counter-Strike. Like, let's be real. I agree. If I'm talking like fundamentally, I think Dust 2 has a lot of features about it in CSGO that made it never a good map. But fans do like to watch it, so I can see why it'll always be in the map pool. Like, it's always going to be a fun upset map for fans to watch. So we'll probably never get rid of that map, sadly. It'll never go the way of Cobblestone, where it's just cast out of the pool. Right, what about this question? There's a few here that are like quite interesting. So I've got one for you, Elmapuddy, and then Snappi wants to jump in. I don't know how much NA he's watched. It says, what makes the Cloud9 team so underwhelming?
What makes them underwhelming? I mean, they have some skill, so that they should be able to compete. I mean, Floppy, I think he's a really good player. He's always a scary one. We had a couple of matches against him where he just 1v3'd us a couple of times, which was not fun on a particular map on Train. I think they lack a little bit of tactical depth. You know what they're going to do, right? You kind of know Modem's going to be running at you at some point. He's going to be trying to push you somewhere on the map when he's a CT. And it is easy in a way to read. It's not always easy to know where the push is going to be coming from, but you know it's going to be coming somewhere. So you know if you try and hold for them, or if you put pressure somewhere, they're going to think they're really smart and they can have an opening on the other side of the map. They're going to push there. And if you just put someone there waiting, you're going to get a kill there. And I mean, we're not even the best at it, to be honest. There's teams that punish them way better than we do. We have lots of close games with them because we actually fail at not getting caught out by those pushes. But we kind of know they're going to come, but they still beat us somehow, which makes our games really close. But I think some of the other teams are even better at dealing with it than us. And I think that's what makes them underwhelming. And that's why you see some of these teams, like 100 Thieves in particular, I noticed when they played them recently, it's just easy. It's like 16-6, 16-7. Because I think they play to the fact that they know that's going to come, and they just punish them for it. And you have a man advantage, and you obviously win like 80% of the rounds once you get that man advantage. So I think that's the biggest thing, is they need to be happy just kind of playing without their pushes, just letting the Ts come to them, particularly on their CT side, using their utility a little bit smarter. And I think that's really where they're lacking right now overall. Because as I said, Floppy's good. I think OC's a decent AWPer as well, and they've got some good pieces in there. So I think they just need to explore some other ways of playing than just the aggressive style they're playing right now.
All right. Do you have any thoughts on Cloud9 Snappi?
To be honest, no. Because it's kind of like, I think it's 5 months since I saw a game with them, so I'd kind of be talking out of my ass if I said anything. So I'm just gonna leave it.
Fair enough. Right, what about this? It's another Elmapuddy question, but he has to go earlier than the rest of us, so we'll ask him anyway. What do you think about Gen.G's first 6 months as a team, like taking it all into account?
I think overall it's been good. Obviously, we came out really hot and just destroyed that DreamHack Anaheim event. I think we dropped one map, or we might have.
I think you didn't lose any maps.
All right, I mean, that's even better. So yeah, we just came out, won that first LAN. Som was looking super hot. And then I think the online stage, we took a little while to adjust. I mean, obviously, we would have liked to win Flashpoint. Has a nice big prize pool, stuff like that. But it was difficult. We flew Daps home after it went to online. He was playing with 100 ping. So we kind of had difficulty there. And then we went in, we won the first RMR event, and then we came second in the RMR that just went. And there was a DreamHack and a Blast in the middle. In our minds, the DreamHack and the Blast were less important. Obviously, we just want to do really well and qualify for the major. So I think overall with the LAN event, then first in the first RMR and then second in this most recent RMR, I'm pretty happy, to be honest, overall. I mean, we put ourselves in a great position with the points to qualify for the major, even a legend spot, which wasn't originally our goal, but now it is. We want to try and get that top 3 in NA. So I think overall pretty happy. I think we could have done better at DreamHack and Blast, like a little bit better, but we did kind of, I think, take those a little bit easier, which I'm very thankful for Gen.G. They were very understanding. It's like, we're a little bit burnt out right now. We're struggling online. Like, it's very repetitive playing these C teams. We're going to kind of like take our foot off the pedal a little bit. We're not going to fully just stop practicing or anything, but we're going to put a little bit less time in, and then when we come to the second RMR event, we'll give you a really good result. So I'm really happy we're able to deliver on that, and I'm really thankful that Gen.G were understanding it, letting us kind of move around our schedule and really, play when we needed to play and get ready for the events that we thought were really important. So yeah, overall, I'm really happy with our first 6 months together.
Sure. I mean, I would say, like, it just proves to me the quality of the players in Gen.G, that even though in Flashpoint, like, you guys looked pretty bad for most of Flashpoint, basically until like at the very end when they nerfed the Krieg. But I always said, like, the reason why people flamed the team so hard is because you look at the players on paper and they should have been straight fire. Like, you look at some of those names, some really good players there. And I think that's been shown out during this online era, that, like, you've seen improvement as the months have gone by. People are starting to figure out their roles or how to play certain maps, etc. And it looks like the level's gone way up since Flashpoint.
Yeah, for sure. I think we're definitely gelling more as a team as well. I think that obviously there was the honeymoon period. I think there's no real doubt about that with the DreamHack event, but then people kind of worked out how we want to play, how like Ben Tet was playing as well. There's been a lot of integrating him in how we want to play in NA, because obviously it's very different for him coming from Asia. So there's been a lot of integrating, trying to work out where he's going to fit in best in the team. So I think we've got that pretty much. There might be a little bit more tweaking, and then just kind of meshing everyone together, automatic back on the AWP, how he wants to be supported by people like Kusta. So I think we're doing better. We're mixing our roles, and yeah, as you said, I think we're showing ourselves to be a lot better, and we've gelled much better as a team moving on through these 6 months.
Snappi, is Emmy secondary calling for Contact?
Yes, in a way, because like I was only there for a week when we entered the Summit qualifier, so I kind of integrated a whole new system on the T sides. But like with only 1 week, getting 6 maps with a new style, we didn't even get to go through CT at all. So on CT, he definitely helps out a lot. We usually play different sides, and sometimes like he could come up with an idea to a round. So yes, I guess he is the main guy as the secondary caller, at least. But in every team, you'll have players who chip in with ideas. But Emmy is certainly the guy who does it the most.
Right, I'm going to change this next question just so that is less likely we have a negative result due to answering the question. It's going to go like this. If, hypothetically, guys, a pro player in a tournament was to accuse another pro player in the same tournament of cheating, do you think that the tournament organizer themselves should there be a penalty? Like, should you maybe get a warning or fine, or should anything happen from the tournament organizer side, in your opinion? I've made it very general in that sense.
Like, it depends. Like, if a player has a suspicion that someone is cheating, they definitely should accuse him, but they should accuse him privately to the tournament.
Right.
If they go out and do it publicly, yeah, I think it's fine to actually give them at least a warning and even a fine. Obviously, it depends on what's been written, right? But
sure.
But I don't think, like, if you actually have a suspicion that someone is cheating, you definitely should go to the tournament organizer and tell them privately.
What do you think, Elmer?
Yeah, I fully agree with that. I think it should be a private matter, not really going out public. Because I think the team you've accused of cheating, they're still playing their games, right? So then they've kind of like got this extra pressure on them, and then it kind of, I guess, disrupts the whole integrity of the tournament. Like, people are now watching these games thinking, is this guy cheating? Like, what am I actually watching here? So I think it should definitely be a private matter. And then the TOs, of course, they should be interested in that as well, because they don't want those thoughts going through viewers' minds when they're watching the game. So I think, yeah, I 100% agree with Snappi. It should be a private thing, and the warning should at least come out if it's public.
One area I feel like that whole discussion got derailed and went really stupid, because everyone knows the famous incident we're obviously referring to as the MIBR versus Chaos one. The way that got completely derailed is a lot of people missed like the principle that was being debated. It wasn't about whether or not that player cheats. Maybe he does. I don't know. I certainly wouldn't claim to know either way. Even if he does, though, it still would be wrong to publicly accuse him. Like, that's not, you're not the cheat master general. Like, you're not out there doing a witch hunt finding the cheats. Like, you're a pro player. Like, it's not your role whatsoever. That's why I agree with Snappi. Even if you were literally thought, like, I don't think you can ever say someone's 100% cheating unless they were literally like speed hacking. But let's say you thought they were 90% cheating. Even for that 10% that they're not, it's really irresponsible to go out there publicly and say it. Because I'll tell you what, I think we all know a few incidents many years ago where some pro players themselves, Shox was one of them, said that someone cheated, and then he turned his own back on that opinion a year later. So he himself wasn't 100% clearly, or, you know, the mafia got to him. Whatever angle you think happened, he obviously changed his opinion. So I would just say in that scenario, what I think the pro players are missing in that argument is not about whether the person is or isn't dodgy. It's about the responsibility that you have when you call them out publicly. That can have enormous consequences that go way beyond feeling frustrated that, like, this guy might have done something dodgy. Like, you have to understand the power you have in that scenario could massively impact people's lives. Hence why we'd rather it was left to tournament officials. And I would hope behind the scenes there'd be some sort of, like, this is probably something we do need, some sort of like a tribunal behind the scenes where they will look into cases if there was something going on. They'll have hopefully like a panel of pros, and they'll have cheat codes. I would hope you'd get all these people involved, and you'd have people who could actually like check these things. And again, we're never going to come to like a firm conclusion, but I think in general, one of the real problems in this case is, at the moment, I understand also why pro players might call people out, especially if they're unproven, because they think there is nothing at the moment that'll ever catch the guy. So they think, right, he's just going to get away with it. So all I can do is call him out publicly. So it's a very murky topic. That's why I tried to reframe it a bit. Right, here's a question for you, maybe Elmapuddy. What do you think of evil geniuses right now?
I mean, I think they're looking really good. The results speak for themselves. I think they lost one map throughout the whole RMR event, and they were the only team that really blew us out in any regard as well. Like, we got to that grand final, and we were like, yeah, we can compete right now. We picked Train. They beat us like 16-6 or something. They just destroyed us. And I think they're just beating everyone. They 2-0'd Team Liquid. I think they're looking really good. They're playing much better as a unit as well. Like, they're very good at playing off each other, and they have those individuals as well who just turn up. Like, you think you've won a round, and then Circle just get 3 kills from like mid-bomb outside on Train. That's actually something that happened to us. And they have those individuals who are really good, and when they're playing together as a unit, they're really hard to stop. So I think they are playing together as a unit. I'm not sure if that comes back to Zeus. I'm not sure what's going on in that team, but that seems to have improved since he's joined. And yeah, I mean, they're difficult to play right now because they are playing as that unit, and their individuals are on point. They're hitting their shots, and I think that's a big thing as well. I think originally, Tarek and Stan were kind of weak targets almost to hit in some of those earlier NA games, but now both those players are actually playing decently well. They're not really that target you can go and try and exploit anymore, particularly when they're playing their CT side. So I think the individual's stepping up, and yeah, as I said, the players are playing much better together, and they're looking scary. Probably the best team in NA. Unfortunately not us, but yeah, they're probably the best looking team in NA right now going into the break.
Right, this is obviously like the guy has made the question a loaded question, but I'll ask it this way anyway because I want to see what you think. Actually, he says, "Why do most teams only look at the map veto from their own perspective?" What I would add in as some context there is I can get why he would say that, because one of my biggest complaints about a lot of teams when they veto is I do feel like they do silly moves. Like we both ban, like I'll pick an example from the past, like you know when Navi used to ban cash, and it's like they would ban cash against a team that also 100% permabans cash, even if they're first. Like in my opinion, that's almost inarguably a mistake. Like unless you think they secretly practiced it and will pick it against you, you're just giving up a free ban at that point in time. You know, like if you came first, you won the veto in that sense. You should ban something different. So if you think about it from that perspective, like what they mean there is like, I mean, I would say Fury is a bit like this. They just pick the maps they want and they ban the maps they don't want. I don't necessarily feel like they're trying to like tailor it to the opponent as much. Whereas obviously like classic Astralis, like they would tailor what they wanted to do third map based on who the team is because they can play nearly every map. So Elmer, maybe start us off on this as a coach. What do you think about, as in a general approach, do you agree, do teams tend to focus on themselves more than the opponent?
Yeah, I think it depends on the team. I think a big reason of it, and maybe why, I mean, it doesn't really work with the Astralis example because they were the best team, but teams like Furia, I think they're confident, and I think when you think you're like, I don't know what it's called, like the favored team overall, and you're definitely the better team, you just want to try and stick with your strengths, right? I mean, it's something we do, not when we're playing teams who are like equal to us or like anything like that, but when we play like an MDL team in a qualifier or something, we don't really ban to that. We don't really like care. Like we just ban. We want to be comfortable. We're going to be the better team on the maps that we're good on. So let's just do that, and we'll beat them because we're better than them. And if we get forced to a map we're not comfortable in, or we're pinged to like the middle to bottom end of our map pool because they're really uncomfortable, and that's not something we really want to do because we're going to be the better team anyway. So okay. I think maybe some of the teams have that mentality, like we're really good, we should be winning this anyway. If we just get the maps we like, we're going to be beating anyone overall. I personally don't buy into that. I think you should try and exploit the other team's map pool, and hopefully you've practiced enough where you have 4 or 5 maps that you're really comfortable on as well, and you can kind of push them to where they're not comfortable, particularly on maps where you're more evenly matched, and then try and win the veto that way. But if I had to guess why teams do that when they're playing other teams, I think it's because they are that confident and they just think, we get the maps we're good on, we're going to beat anyone in the world, so let's just do it.
What do you think, Snappi?
I think it depends, but I've always wanted to go for the weaknesses of the opponents in general, and that's also why I always had weird maps that we were good on in my teams, because I felt like it's a big strength if you can push someone to like vertigo, nuke, overpass, couple. I think those, like, maybe not anymore, but that those used to be maps where you could actually exploit someone by picking into it. Then I think there's also one factor that people kind of like forget sometimes, and that's that the teams actually practice a lot, like maybe 8 hours a day.
Matter.
And if we practice the map and have really good results on it, then we are not afraid to play it, even if it doesn't look like it's a good map in officials, right?
Yes.
And a good example is we just played the Summit qualifier, and Contact never played Overpass before, but we practiced it a lot under me now, and it might actually have been our best map in practice, so it ended up as the 3rd map, and everyone would obviously think that we were brain dead by having it end up on Overpass as the 3rd map. But like when we only had a week, we had some maps that definitely didn't go that great, and then we had Overpass, which we hadn't played in the qualifier, and we knew that on that map they basically couldn't counter us, which they would have been able to do on Inferno or Nuke or whatever the other maps might be, right? So I definitely want to go for teams' weaknesses, but there's a lot more. It's a lot more complex than just looking at a stats sheet from last 3 months.
Sure. I mean, I would also throw in as well, something else that factors in is also the fact that you scrim some of the same teams you might be playing. Like, obviously, if Elmapuddy's Gen.G team plays EG, first of all, in tournaments they played 1 billion times the last few months, and I'm sure in scrims they play each other. So in that scenario, on paper, the win rate might say, just pick into this map, they're bad on it. But for all we know, that's the map that they're scrimming the hardest, and maybe in scrims they tool Gen.G on it every time. So in that scenario, it's all well and good us seeing a hole there, but that hole might not exist. Like, actually, they might just get spanked if they let that map through.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's even happened. I mean, you scrim a team and you think, they're weak on this map, and then they come out with some crazy strategies. They look really good at it in a couple of scrims, and you're kind of like, doesn't scare you, but it makes you think, all right, they're not as bad as it looks on paper. Exactly what you said, and you don't really want to pick it in that regard. Then you might be happy to let it through as a third or something like that. But yeah, that definitely happens. With it. The scrims do play a part in that, and particularly in NA, when you scrim each other all the time, you have a pretty good idea. You have a massive sample size as to what teams are good at and what they're feeling comfortable at and what they're practicing a lot.
That's why I'd even throw in there, if you're actually a legit world-class team, like one of those teams that has 5 or 6 maps, you can really play 5 or 6, like legit versus most teams. That's also why some of those teams, I actually like it. If they know they're going to get through like a group stage, if in the group stage they fuck around and against the lesser teams, they'll play one of those maps that are deeper in the map pool. Because I tell you what, that one game that you win against that lesser team, or show that it's not going to be easy, that'll put off that team that's just below your level that was thinking of punish picking you in that veto. Like, they'll think twice if they see you play like Overpass is a great example, because if you show you can play CT side Overpass, there's a lot of people that might have done that as a gamble pick where they're not actually that good at Overpass, who'll be like, actually, maybe we won't pick that. That could turn out badly for us. So, like, I think that's the part that people will never be able to see, because obviously we'll never know what happens in scrims. Right, here's a question for you then. This is just a general one, but I want to get you guys' take on it. How do you manage criticism? Like, Snappi, maybe start with you, mate, since you recently went through some, right?
Yeah, like, when I was younger, I used to read a lot of it, and it kind of got to me. But I think with age, you kind of learn to only take in what you can actually use and just filter out the rest. Obviously, when you have a shitstorm coming at you, it's pretty much impossible for most people to just ignore all of it. But I've had my fair shares of hype and positivity about me, but also a lot of negativity. So I think it was harder when it first started, but you kind of learn to deal with it and ignore it. That's also why for younger players it's probably a lot worse. Not saying that it's not bad for older players, but for younger people it might get even more to them, especially if they read HLTV and watch a lot of podcasts where they get basically roasted and stuff like that.
What do you think, Elmapuddy? You don't get criticised much, do you, mate?
Yeah, I mean, no one really cares about me, so I don't really get that much criticism. I mean, there was a couple of things, obviously, when there was a bit of a coaching shuffle in NA, people were like, oh, get rid of Elmapuddy and stuff.
They wanted Zeus instead of you or something, I'm guessing, right?
Yeah, stuff like that.
Okay.
But I mean, I see where they're coming from the outside, to be honest. I mean, I'm obviously a lot less experienced than those guys.
Sure.
So it's just kind of like, it doesn't really bother me, to be honest. And I know what I'm doing in the team. I think the team's happy with what I'm doing as well. So yeah, I don't really care that much. And as I said, I understand where some of these criticisms or these suggested moves are coming from. So it doesn't really bother me, to be honest. And as I said, I don't really get a lot of heat anyway. So it's not a big thing for me.
Right, here's one for you as well, Elma. Who is the best NA team? Like, forget results. Just who for you is the best NA team right now? I mean, they're obviously including the Brazilians where they say that. It's just like NA region team.
I think it has to be EG again. I think they're far and away better than everyone else right now. I think Liquid are really struggling online. I don't know if it's because they're all spread out. I mean, EG is the same thing, they're all spread out, but they seem to be dealing with it a little bit better than Team Liquid. I think those are the two that really just have to come to the front of your mind. Obviously, you could throw Furia in there, but then they dropped off the last couple of things. I mean, if you asked me maybe a month or two ago, I would have said, yeah, Furia are looking amazing right now. Sure. They're all together in Florida, I think it is. So they don't really have that problem where everyone's spread out and not together, which I think probably would have helped them a lot. But I don't know if they got really burnt out towards the end of the season and they just lost the last couple of events and they came 6th in the RMR event we just had or something, losing to Cloud9 in the 5th, 6th decider match, which surprised me. I was like, oh, Fury should win this easy, finish in 5th, get a few extra points, but that didn't happen. So I kind of have to move them out of the picture, and I think EG definitely takes the crown right now.
Sure. I definitely think EG's map pool looks way better now as well. Like, it seems to have actually stabilised finally. They used to be able to lose on any map before.
For sure. I think they've also started to learn how to play Vertigo, which helped them a lot. So I think them learning to play that map, as you said, has really helped their map pool. So I think Overpass, Mirage, and Vertigo, they had 3 weak maps you could pick into if you were playing against them, but they've kind of fixed the Vertigo one. It's now really only that Mirage and Overpass pick. It doesn't help us because we can't play Overpass, but yeah, I think them having that only those 2 weaker maps really helps them out. And particularly in NA, a lot of teams don't want to play Mirage. Like 100 Thieves aren't good at it, Cloud9 aren't good at it. It's only really us and Team Liquid and the Brazilian teams that'll play Mirage. They kind of, their map pool has 2 weak spots, but there's a lot of teams that can't really abuse it because they don't want to play Overpass on Mirage. And it's really only the Brazilian teams and maybe Team Liquid, even though they just lost EG on Mirage. I think Liquid aren't even that good at Mirage, to be honest. It's really only the Brazilian teams who can really punish them if they want to into one of those 2 maps. They've kind of picked the right 2 maps to have weak. And as you said, when they're just playing NA teams, I think that really boosts their map pool, and they win the veto against a lot of us when they're playing and going into those tournaments.
That's what I found always so mad to me. Because if people don't know, even when Team Liquid was at their peak, they used to actually have at one point like a 16 map win streak on Mirage, but they never were picking it. That was like the one they just played like deciders or someone picked against them. And the reason, what's bizarre is, even when they were strong, they never like chose to go into it. They did it briefly at the end of last year when they ran out of options. I can't believe that EG and Team Liquid don't like Mirage. And look at this map. First of all, it is the FPL map. Everyone's playing that in every fucking pug. Then you look at their teams. They have like all the firepower in the world. And then on T side, it's the fucking mid-round map. Like, you would think like every check should be going next to these teams' names, but it just shows maybe there's something you could address. I'll spin this into a question. Why do you think it is that sometimes teams, even where from the outside it looks like everything should work, why do you think sometimes teams just don't like a map? Something about it just doesn't sit with them. What do you think, Snappi? You must have some thoughts on this, mate.
I think it can't just be one player basically spreading negativity. Like if one player is very vocal about not liking a map and constantly bashing it when you're going into a veto and maybe you're asking for opinions, that map can very quickly, like, it can kind of spread. So I don't know if there's one player that doesn't particularly like the map. It could be someone who plays B on Mirage or whatever, and then it can quickly spread, I guess. That's that's really my only answer to it. I don't know what else it could be.
Yeah, just speculating.
Yeah, I mean, we had a little bit of a problem with that as well when Vertigo first came out. We were like, we should play this map, but then there was a lot of pushback from some vocal people in the team who were like, this is a terrible map. We don't want to be playing it. So I think there is some truth to what Snappi is saying as well. I think it's weird sometimes. It's hard to put a finger on what makes teams not as good at a map when they should be. Maybe it's an individual. I mean, particularly if your AWPer is not comfortable on a map, I think that does make it a lot weaker for you. Like if your AWPer is not very good at playing a CT side or locking down an area he should be, I think that can really spin a whole map kind of like out for you, particularly like bigger maps like Dust 2 and Mirage, where you need your AWPer to be really comfortable. If your AWPer doesn't like those maps, it's very difficult for you to play into those. And I think that's a little bit what EG has is Cirque, I don't think he's very comfortable playing Mirage, and I think that's a big reason why that map is not very good for them.
Okay.
That's probably true.
Since Elmapuddy has to go in a second, I'll ask him one last like Gen.G related question, just so we send him out the door. Right. Let me have a look. What was a good one? I had one a second ago. Basically, one thing people want to know about Elmapuddy, we'll combine a couple here, is like basically like the team setup of Gen.G. So for example, is Daps like the sole caller? Do other people like chime in with concepts? Because obviously people like Automatic and Bentet at different times in their careers have done the IGL role. And then similarly, you probably know this is coming, everyone wants to know, like, you know, why do you keep making Automatic AWP, etc., and why don't you take them off the AWP? Because it's a pretty popular like sort of like narrative in the community. So what would you say on these topics?
So the first one, it is like Daps is the main caller, but then Automatic does chime in a lot. Automatic brings a lot of stuff to practice as well, particularly around his AWP, but also entire team concepts as well. He's very good at that, actually, Automatic. I've been very impressed with his understanding and also his ability to explain something to the rest of his team. So he's very good at that, along with Daps, and he will secondary call if he sees an opening with his AWP or a pick he wants to go to. He'll say, I'm going to do this. Can you guys do this off me? And then also if he just sees an opening when Daps is on the other side of the map, he's very good at calling and coordinating something as well. So it mainly comes down to Daps and Automatic. Bentet doesn't do a lot of mid-round calling. It'll come out every now and then like it does from all players, but not anything extra from that point of view. And then with Automatic being on the AWP, I mean, that's something he wants to do. That's something he wants to master, and that's something he's very driven to become the best at, I guess. And he is one of those players who, once he gets his mind on something, he's going to be pushing forward. He's going to be improving every day. And I think he is a good AWPer, and he can be a good AWPer. Obviously, he was a very good rifler as well, which is why a lot of people have these questions around if he should be AWPing. But I think his AWPing has improved a lot. I mean, we even seen these last couple of events. He's he's been playing really well. I think he was one of the highest rated players. He has a lot of impact rounds. He knows what he wants to do. He's very good at coordinating and using that AWP in a good way. So I think it's just a matter of time for him. And I personally have no problem with him being on the AWP because I think he is a very good AWPer. He can also be a very good rifler when he drops that gun and picks up the AK or whatever in a round. So it's good to have him be able to be that hybrid and switch between the two. But I think it's just a matter of he really wants to AWP. And I think if he wants to do that, you got to let him do it. And as I said, he's not like he's bad at it. I think he's actually is a very good AWPer, and he has very good ideas about how he wants to play. So I don't really have any issues with him on the AWP, and it's good that he can drop that and pick up the rifle and be insane with that as well. So I think, yeah, there's not really going to be any changes there. He's going to be AWPing, I think, for a long time to come, so people should get used to it.
Okay. Right, Elma has to go now, so you can drop the call, mate. We'll just switch to 2. Cheers, mate. Peace.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Right, let me just set this up. Just have to do the overlay and then we're good. Technically still live, but whatever. Scuffed in it. It's the way it is.
Do you need me to move my camera?
No, I can move it myself, mate. Don't
Okay.
worry about that. It should be done now, basically. Yeah. Right, so we'll continue for like another 15, 20 minutes and then we'll finish up. So all the other questions have to be related to Snappi, contact. You can maybe ask about Astralis, but I'm just going to warn you, as you saw from the first question, he's probably limited as to what he can say about that. He's not going to say anything outrageous. So that's if you ask someone about Astralis, I would keep it more along the lines of like, what's it like to play with this person or something like that. You know, something you can actually answer without causing drama. Right. In the meantime, I'll ask you, or you can also ask obviously about that team that he was going to be on, that Mongolian team, Tiger. Let me have a look here. Where is there a good question? Oh, I've got a question for you. So this is actually quite an interesting one. It says, how does integrating a system into an international team like Contact compare to doing so in Danish teams? Because obviously you've played basically your whole career in the Danish teams. So like, what has it been like in that regard coming in with these guys where, I mean, you've got a super multinational squad and you're trying to, like, are you trying to implement like the systems that you've had in past teams? Are you building from the ground up? Is there even a system in Contact? Give us some thoughts in that regard.
I don't think there was much of a system before, and I think that kind of showed. But yeah, I kind of bring like obviously I'm always going to change it a little bit depending on the personnel I have. But it is a lot of the same stuff. And people has actually been very welcoming to it. I think they just basically I think the team needed a breath of fresh air. So they've been very positive about it, and I actually think we showed some decent results in the qualifier just with 1 week of practice. As I said, we didn't focus on CT, so CT was pretty garbage to be honest, but I think we actually did some pretty good T-size, and we went 5 for 5 in maps against OG, Fnatic, Complexity, and Avis. And I think 8 of those maps was against OG, Complexity, and Fnatic. And I think with 1 week of practice and the state the team was in before, I actually think it was very acceptable. Unfortunately, we ended up 6th, and it was only top 5 who qualified. So that was kind of unlucky. But I think like I'm gonna do what I've done in my past teams with small tweaks here and there depending on the player. But people has been very positive about it. I think they needed it, to be honest.
Sure. I mean, I'll say that is one of the reasons why I was very interested in your pickup specifically, because when I was telling that organization, like potential people to pick up, just because I always just think of what is like the simplest move now you can make that makes you instantly good. I wouldn't have suggested you in as much as like I know that like I say you're a system IGL, so I would have actually just suggested someone like Lecro's on the market, you know, because to me it's like, right, look at the teams he's played. Like I'm sure immediately you can play a fairly loose style around him, but the point is if you're committed to the long run, obviously trying to build up your team, it's like something I was discussing with Legia on my podcast with him. It's like it takes a long time, but the idea is it gets you to a higher level when you can actually implement in depth what you want to do, right?
Yeah, for sure. When you get it to work and everyone like gets the idea behind why you do certain moves, because basically in my system we never have a strat that cannot be run in 3 or 4 variations in order to avoid teams countering you. And I think it takes some time, but I think the team was like they've been playing a loose style for a long time, and it actually didn't work that well. So I think they wanted something new, and so I think it actually makes sense in that regard.
Right, one Flashpoint related question I can answer just for the sake of getting out there is someone asked if in Flashpoint 2, the next tournament, there will still be 12 teams, because obviously last time we had I think it was 8, and then 4 of them were from the qualifier and were the teams that came in that regard, replacement teams. As far as I know, the plan is still to have it be 12, because the idea is to have 3 groups in that regard, because we have that system where you do the 2 phases. It would have been 3 phases actually originally, if people don't know, it's just we had to shorten the season, truncate it. So what I would say is there should in theory still be the same number of teams. Whether there'll be more partner teams is obviously based on whether or not there's good partners come in. If new orgs, there's some big ones out there, maybe some Korean League of Legends ones might jump in. There's some big orgs might come along, like FPX was going to obviously originally, but that's based on business reasons. That's nothing to do with how good their squad is now. That's if it's someone that wants to be partner with the league, and if the people in the league want to be partnered with them. So I know from the outside it might seem weird, because you might think, we'll just take this team in because they have a good team. I'll give you an example. I won't be a hater, but I'll just say it outright. So Big, for example. Big right now is the number 1 team in the world. But as an organisation, they're nowhere near some orgs that don't even have a CS team right now. So I don't know whether we would partner with them if they wanted to join. Maybe they're not in the position in their careers and where we are at business that would make sense, even though they have the number 1 team in the world right now. Because the point is, you're not making a deal based on who you have now. They might not have a good team next year for all we know. You're trying to partner with businesses that make sense. So there's going to be no rush, as far as I know, from Flashpoint to make those 12 partnered teams be all partnered teams. In theory, you could have same 8 that we had before. There could be 10 next time. Maybe eventually we get to 12, but maybe it takes 2 years. I think actually, if anything, they probably want to leave some wiggle room to see who else wants to come into Counter-Strike. Because remember, the premise of Flashpoint is to prove that the monetization angle works in the way that it doesn't in the other leagues. So the hope is in the future it becomes even more appealing to really big name orgs that maybe at the moment only have an Overwatch team or an LCS team or whatever other game. It might not be CS, because it's about getting the best business partners, not the best team. Right, here's a question that's related. Well, at least you can answer. So it's just a simple question. What happened at Tiger? Or rather, what can you say?
I can actually say everything, really. It was Smooya who came to me and said if I wanted to join him with Tiger. And I had some European offers, so at first I was like, no, there's no way. And then I actually looked into the team, and they actually had a lot of potential, because I went in and just out of curiosity, I looked at some demos. And then I got explained more about the situation from Smooya, and I was intrigued, so I got in contact with the manager. And after that, basically, I found out that they had a really big company behind them. There was we came to an agreement eventually, because I actually felt like it was a fun experience to have, because I actually thought I could make that team top 20 in the world. And I know it sounds insane, but Smooya is a really talented orb, and I thought there were 3 players in that lineup. There was actually 4, but I thought that if I put in my system, because they played, in my opinion, really bad Counter-Strike, that it could actually be a very good team. And on top of that, we would get easy qualifiers every time if we just went to Asia and played them. And also the team would be based in Europe. So from what I was told, the guys were going to move to Serbia and play from there. So I didn't have to move. I was only going to go there to certain qualifiers. And regarding Corona and all that stuff, I know that there was a lot of talk about that, but I actually searched visa at the South Korean embassy. So I was going to go to South Korea with Smooya and stay in basically, I was going to be on lockdown for 2 weeks, because you have to do that there. And South Korea is probably one of the places in the world where they have Corona the most under control. Yes. So I felt like it was not I could get the visa for that to go there, and I could get a PC in the lockdown area and portable Wi-Fi. So I was just going to go there, stay there for 2 weeks. Then after that, I would get an apartment, and I was going to stay for the 2 first Road to Rio events. And then I would go home after that. And obviously, we didn't know what was going to happen with Corona. But if it was still not over, I would probably going to have to do that again. So it wouldn't really people didn't understand what kind of move it was. To me, it was more like, I've been with all these Danish players. I feel like I've, in many ways in my career, been underrated, in the sense that I brought these teams every time to top 20 to a top 20 position stable, and like since then, none of those players have gone to go into top 10. So I was like, I want to prove it now with a bunch of people where people have no expectations, and if I can do
They'd
that,
have to give you
people
credit if you did that, right?
yes,
Yeah.
like then people
Yes.
people wouldn't be able to ignore that, because people leave out a lot of details about what happened to the players I've been with in the past and where they are now. And I know a lot of them has a lot of potential and are really good players, and I wish in the future I will play with a lot of them still. But I felt like it was actually, and like it wasn't a money move as people actually think it was.
Okay. Right. I noticed there's a lot of questions I can combine into one, because there's a lot of people who are very interested. It's not a surprise in contact in Esperanto, because if everyone goes back to when he was in Imperial, the guy looked like a stud. He even had that game on training, I think against Nip at the Major, where he was just going absolutely nuts, had like 30 kills or whatever. Like, basically the gist is, sometimes he looks like he has super mad skills, but if you actually look at his stats or you look at how he's been in tournaments in contact, it's been pretty underwhelming. So what are your thoughts on this player? Like, do you have some special plan in mind for him? Have you selected him as a special talent? What do you think?
Yeah, I think with him it's more about working with communication and basically try to convince him that his team can help him become a better player, and he can help his teammates around him, because his skill is insane. So I think it's more about unlocking communication than actual gameplay with him, and then I think the rest will come naturally, to be honest, because he is insanely skilled individually.
Yeah, I'll just say from talking to him a little bit and seeing interviews, it sounds like mentality is everything with that guy, because it even seemed like in some of his teams, he's the guy where if some of his teammates sucked, it just gave up mentally in the game. And obviously you can't do that if you want to be the star player, because if you want to build up, we have to have the star players play at their level so we can get the other guy fixed or replace him. If everyone plays like shit, we can't even identify where the problems are in the squad.
Yeah,
Like, what
like
about...
I
go on.
think, like as I said, like I think if I can unlock the communication part, I think he's like I really think it's just gonna come naturally. I think it will unlock the rest to a certain extent. So yeah, like he is, as I said, like I cannot emphasize, he is so skilled individually.
Here's a question. How does a new team decide what map to choose as their home map and their permaban? What would you say to that? Like, what's your process?
Like a lot of it is the in-game leader, but the rest of it is mostly practice, I guess. Right now, we don't really have a safe pick. Like, you need to probably play for 3 to 6 months in order to actually learn your map pool, at least. So I think it's mostly down to how practice goes on the different maps that you play, right? That's, as I said earlier, also why we decided not to ban overpass, because it was actually going really great in practice for us. So we was like, yeah, they don't know what we do, they have no clue. But obviously we got smashed. But it was also a very tough situation. 6 maps in a row, 9 hours, 8 or 9 hours of play in a row. There was the whole thing about us not getting a break at all, and it was there was a heat wave basically around Lithuania and Serbia, so EspiranTo and Emi didn't feel very well on the last 2 maps.
Right, you touched on it a little bit before, but maybe go into more detail. What do you think about Smooya as a player?
I
Because,
think
like, put it this way, one thing I think often gets lost with that guy is all the problems I'm aware of he's ever had in any of his teams were only attitude related. It was never anything to do with his in-game ability. And so people think because no one wants him and he's been kicked from teams, that means he's like in any way bad as a player. You know, I feel like that's the way people have gotten a bit lost on that one. So what do you think of him as a player?
as a player, he's really skilled. He showed that in America, I guess. Like, he basically just owned every team he played over there. And I think if you just play with him, you can see he is a very skilled player. Like, he's not a like as a rifler, he is not a bad rifler, but I think people have to see Orbos in a very different picture, because he is a very, very good Orber, and I think Orbos in general is always going to have the best baseline, to have the best statistics and have the most impact. And that's also why we see like the first Road to Rio top 6 was random Orbos from different teams. I think honestly, the statistics around Orbas is terrible because the impact rating is always going to be high because they're always going to get more first kills. But Smooya is definitely in the top category of the Orbas, and I think overall, I think it's sad that a team doesn't pick him up because I think you just need someone to help him and guide him in that sense.
Yes.
And that's why I was intrigued to play with him, because I thought that me and him being two European guys, like we would have to get a bond in a certain way. Like it would pretty much be impossible not to.
Yes.
And I felt like I could actually guide him into to maybe getting a better attitude and maybe become a secondary leader, in the sense that the Asian guys had to he had to be the leader so that the rest followed along, if that makes sense. And he is just very skilled, and I hope that he gets picked up very soon.
Yeah, one thing I would say about him is that he's in a very tough scenario at the moment. It's almost like what you call a catch-22 scenario, because in terms of like the rep that he's now built up, the baggage about his personality and how everybody he's difficult to work with, I feel like he's one of those players where if he had a legendary in-game leader, like if he had like Carrigan as his in-game leader, I think he would just be perfectly well behaved. I think he'd do what the guy said because he would respect what they told him. But what he doesn't realise is this. You're never going to get the Carrigan in-game leader if you haven't proven other things in the game. So even if that would be the person you'd respect, you have to basically learn that lesson before you get them anyway, because you're not going to get to the position where anyone's going to want to pick you up at that level. Like, as weird as it sounds, there are some very skilled players who get trapped in that kind of a cycle where it's like everyone knows. It's like Config. Everyone's known for years the guy had the skills, but no one wanted to play with him. Like a lot of teams said no because they just didn't think that he's not going to be serious in our team though. So it doesn't matter that if he'd have gone to Astralis, he probably would have turned his whole career around. But there's a reason why Astralis wouldn't pick him up until recently, probably.
Yeah, like with Config, like the one thing that I just want to clear straight away about Config is that a lot of people think he was toxic. Like honestly, Config is one of the least toxic players I've played with. He just didn't focus on CS at all. That was the problem, and that's why I basically. I don't know if I said that, but the only one that could fix Config was Config, because when he started to take the game seriously, he was going to be one of the best players in the world, and I think he's well on his way now with complexity, and that's why I could never be really mad. Like I was frustrated that he didn't want to put in the hours and didn't want to be that serious back then. But I always saw him as a good friend still, because he was never toxic. He was never a bad teammate in the game at all, and he was always a nice guy to be around.
What do you think? Here's an interesting question. We'll ask a couple more and then we'll finish it. So here's one that's actually an Astralis one you can answer without it being some drama magnet. Basically, their point is, since everyone knows that Astralis is amazing, they have all these sick players who are some of the best ever. Like, is there anything about them or a skill they have or some aspects that people don't see that's like underrated, or there's something to them that people wouldn't know from the outside? Do you have anything you can tell us?
Yeah, I mean, it is like in general, their communication is just top notch. I think when I played with them, they were really welcoming, even though they were in a tough situation themselves. And we obviously tried our best, but you could also feel like that they maybe weren't as motivated as they would be if they had the full 5 red. So the conditions weren't perfect. But one of the things that it didn't really surprise me, because I actually played with Device before I retired the first, in 2012-13, I basically quit playing CS and took my bachelor's degree in economics. And back then I played with Device, and even back then it was obvious that he was a real talent and he had good communication. But a thing that is really underrated is that I played inner on train with Astralis, a position I never played before. And whenever he would rotate to play inside, he would always tell me what angle he would take, what grenades he could throw where for me, so I could always be proactive in the way that I would play the spot. And that's, in my opinion, really underrated. It's just really underrated to have players that actually pre-plan of what's going to happen. So if he was going to play on the spools inside, he would always tell me, I have a flash for Speedway, so you can play behind Pop Train and I can flash for you when they go down low and stuff like that. So I would be more comfortable playing a spot I was really uncomfortable in.
What about this question, right? This is obviously a very vague one, so we're going to have to decide for ourselves what he means by this. But they say, who is the best newcomer in the Danish scene, in your opinion, right? What I'll do with that is, let's not make it too hipster. It doesn't have to be someone people literally don't know. How about this? Here's how I would rephrase it. Which one of like the current crop of players that have come up in this year, last year, that sort of era, who do you think's the next one to be a great player? I'll answer it as well, but I want you to go first. Who would you pick initially?
Down for sure. Like I don't know how new he is, but I guess he only started playing with Heroic.
I think that's a fair pick.
Year.
Yeah.
But Down is one of the best players. Like if I had to pick a top 5 team, he would definitely be in the top 5 team of players that I play.
What impresses you about him?
It's just really. He has a really good game sense. He has good ideas. He can. Basically, he's the kind of person, like, he didn't like playing Monster. Nobody likes playing Monster on Overpass, but he's maybe the best Monster player I ever played with, even though he hated the spot. Like, you can put him anywhere, and he's going to be a good player. And I think with time, he's only going to get better because he puts in the work. You just have a general good understanding and a good attitude. And, like, you can feel like he's one of, like, some players you actually have to tell them you made a mistake, but then there's also certain players where I actually don't want to point out mistakes because they're hard on themselves anyway. And he's one of those people that, like, when he makes a mistake, he's gonna be hard on himself. I don't need to tell him; he's just gonna do it himself. So, yeah, it's Down for sure because he's gonna improve in a lot of aspects in the future.
Okay. That's interesting because obviously a lot of that insight comes from playing with him. Like, I would just say, like, the funny thing is, he's someone I would pick at the moment, at least, where I've been mad underwhelmed because everyone always hyped him and told me, this guy's going to be fucking sick. And then the problem is that I only mainly watch the tier 1 tournaments. And every time I saw him, I'd be like, he's not doing any of that shit. What? Like, he actually reminds me a little bit of Sergey from ENCE because they both, like, have games where they look really good, but they also look like they're not quite ready to be, like, elite players yet. And sometimes I wonder with players like that, how much of like they need the right in-game leader or someone to push them into a role maybe they don't do now. I would just pick myself. I think at this point people are finally getting the message, but I would pick Tessus, the guy who obviously recently joined Heroic, just because, listen, the eye test on his skills like speaks for itself. Like, he just looks like he has mad fucking skills. So if he can keep his head together and keep progressing through the competitive scene, give him maybe like a year or so, I think he could be a very good player. Looks like he has mad aim.
Yeah, he has insane skills. So, but I didn't play with him, so it's also hard for me to
fair enough
kind of get the, like, so. But I've played with a lot of the guys, so like sure Down is like, I don't know if he's ever going to be a top 10 player, but in my opinion, you don't have to be a top 10 player to be a really good player.
Sure.
Because he has kind of like, it's easier sometimes to find someone who can be a star player than finding someone who can be a very, very good player in weird roles.
Oh, of course, yeah. Sure. Right, I think we'll just leave it there. That was a good hour or so. Right. We'll be back next week, or at least I will, with whoever the guests are for that one. Hopefully Monty as well. See you then, everyone. Peace.